Well, hello again and welcome to the Movement Clinic. My name is Emily and today we are doing a restorative and myofascial release class for the upper back and shoulders and really just kind of this whole upper body area. It's a place where many of us hold lots of tension, and this is one of my favorite ways to help to relieve some of that tension. So for these classes, we often find that props are necessary, and I'm going to be taking us through with a few props on this one. So you'll see I have a couple of blocks here. I have my cork blocks. You can use foam blocks, or if you don't have blocks at all, you can just find a big book or a couple of big books that are about yay big and just use a blanket to drape over them so that maybe the edges aren't so hard. On that note, you see I also have a blanket here. You can use a bath towel or anything like that that works for you. I also have a couple of myofascial release balls here. Tennis balls will do. I also once had a student who used a couple of small apples or like unripe limes and lemons for these classes. So feel free to get as creative as you would like, something that's about the size of a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. So go ahead and gather your things, and I look forward to seeing you on the mat. Okay, so for the first part of class, we're going to get started on our backs using both of our blocks. You can set the blanket and the two balls or whatever you're using as myofascial release balls to the side. So you're going to take one block on the highest level and set it at the head of your mat. That's going to be for your head. And then you're going to take this second block and place it on the medium level perpendicular, so almost like you're creating a T shape with the two blocks. Now, the bottom edge of this block, ladies, is going to hit about where your bra strap would be. Gentlemen, where you would wear a heart rate monitor around your chest. More or less at the bottom tips of the shoulder blades, roughly. So to come into this, bend your knees, plant your butt somewhere behind the blocks, and you really just have to eyeball this. And then go ahead and come on down. I come down onto one elbow, kind of feel where that block is, and then slowly adjust my hips where they feel comfortable, making sure that as I lie back, it feels nice. If it's too low, it's gonna be hitting more into that kidney space, and you're gonna know it's too low because it's gonna feel crappy. That's the best indicator, is that it just does not feel good whatsoever and really uncomfortable. So you're gonna let your arms go out by your sides, palms face up. You want that feeling of the shoulder blades just wrapping open around the block. And one of the big things that I want to mention as we just lie back here and allow the chest to open and the shoulders to roll back, and this essence and feeling of sort of draping around the block. I want to point out that within myofascial release and within these restorative practices and using props, you really need to be curious with finding your way into what helps you to feel better. Okay, what feels right for you, what helps you to feel good in the moment. So, or even feel that you're doing it correctly. So continue to move around and adjust until you feel what feels right for you. So start to smooth out and lengthen the breath. You might leave the knees bent, or if you haven't already, send the legs long. And if you choose a different option, like legs long instead of knees bent, and that feels crappy on your low back, just reverse. It's the beautiful thing about the human existence, is that we get to change our minds. With those longer, smoother breaths, start to feel, with each exhale, a sense of letting go somewhere else. Scanning the body for anywhere that you are gripping or clenching. Notice if you're resisting the resistance of your props that are underneath you. If you're kind of trying to lift away from them, see if you can soften around the resistance. It's also a big part of doing this type of restorative or myofascial work. You get into some pretty tender spots of the body that are often not found by regular body work or massage, or even in yoga and kind of traditional mobility and flexibility work. So as we go through this, continue to find places where you can soften around the resistance instead of meeting resistance with resistance. And slowly bend your knees to plant your feet if they aren't bent already. Feet are about outer hip width distance. Comfortable bend in the knees. Go ahead and bring your arms down by your sides. Palms will gently face in towards your hips. And as we inhale, reach your fingertips above the shoulders and then back behind you. Upper arms come next to your ears. Exhale, release your arms out by your sides. Inhale, reach your arms up and overhead. Exhale, arms down by your sides. Keep the arms softly long. So often people will bend the elbows a lot as the arms come overhead. Inhale, reach up and back. Try to keep those arms long. If it's hard once the arms start to come overhead, just widen the arms out a little bit. And exhale, arms down by your sides. Now we're going to change it up. As we inhale, snow angel the arms out and then overhead. Exhale, creating this sort of more circular motion outside of the body. Inhale, arms reach up and overhead. And exhale, snow angel them back down. Last one, inhale, reach the arms up and overhead. Exhale to snow angel them down. And go ahead and pause. Very gently roll off of your blocks to one side or the other, as softly as you can, and then move them out of the way. Keep them handy, we'll need them in just a moment. Go ahead and lie onto your backs. You can keep your knees bent here or allow the legs to go long, whatever feels good for you. With palms facing sky, just take a moment. It's a sense of recalibration happens. Also notice what it feels like to lie on your back here without the props underneath you. Good. Now, roll onto your right side. Knees are going to be bent. Go ahead and prop yourself up on your right forearm. And we're going to take one of our blocks and we're going to take it on the medium level. And we're going to take the long part facing towards the long edges of the mat, or sorry, the short edges of the block facing the long edges of the mat, long edges of the block facing the short edges of our mat. And this long part is going to go right underneath our armpit. So ultimately what we're looking for here, we're working on the sort of front strap of the armpit and then this back strap. So you might even grab it here to become aware of where you're gonna try to land that block. We're gonna start first with this back strap of the armpit. So we want that back strap to land probably somewhere on this long lower edge of the block, the part that's closer to your hip. You want enough of the block to be behind you so that we can roll back to find more of that back strap, okay? So just make sure it's not too out in front, maybe a little bit more behind. Go ahead and rest your right elbow down. It should be able to rest down. And rest your head in your hand so that the neck can be relaxed. And now this left hand can just relax on your left hip or in front of you. And then go ahead and start to rock toward the back. See if you can't find a tender spot. Now with cork blocks, there's quite a bit of resistance because they're harder. So feel free to grab a blanket if it's too much, if you have cork blocks, and lay the blanket over your block so that you can make it a little bit softer. And if you have foam blocks, same thing. That might still be a little too much resistance for you. But try to stay curious and find a spot that you can work with, rocking front and back. And then maybe find a spot where you can be still. Taking some nice deep breaths. So the really nice thing about myofascial release work and using these tools, sort of like self-massage tools, is that it's about 30 to 60 seconds that really makes a difference. So we don't have to do it for very long to see a huge difference. And feel free to stay where you are or press into the elbow a little bit and move the block like a centimeter, half an inch, not much, up or down, depending on what allows the elbow to stay down. And then rock front and back, maybe find a different spot. Here we're capturing a couple of big muscles here that tend to cause some tightness on this sort of back strap and make it hard for us to reach our arms overhead. So you see this a lot, or I see this a lot rather, with very muscular men or maybe even people who sit at desks a lot. But the lats that come across the back, also our triceps cross the back of our arm there. So we're actually releasing a few things that tend to get tightened up, that tend to cause us to hunch over. So this hopefully really helps with our posture as well, or it might over time if we keep working with it. Good. See if you can find a spot, a new spot to soften into for a few breaths. Excellent. Now, go ahead and release your left hand down. And now we're going to try to catch this front strap, or what many of us know to be our pecs. So you want to catch it sort of on this front corner of the block. So you may need to adjust it or pull it forward slightly to do that. You're going to lower your right forearm down and literally turn your chest to face the floor. So I'm more at like this 45-degree angle with my upper body, as you can see. If you can't feel it on that front strap of the armpit, adjust the block accordingly. Also, women, be careful of that breast tissue. So we're not landing it on our breast. We are really getting the muscle here closer to the armpit. So make sure that you're making it comfortable for that pretty sensitive breast tissue as well. Okay. Now go ahead and stack your left hand down and right hand on top of left, and soften your forehead onto the backs of your hands. See if you can use your exhales to melt more fully around that block. Good. Now, if this feels like enough for you here, by all means, stay. You don't need to add on any movement, but if you would like to play with a little movement here, go ahead and lift your forehead. Hover that right forearm off of the mat. And now the right forearm is going to be, or the outer edge of the right forearm is going to be parallel to this short front edge of the mat. And we're simply going to make sweeping motions with the hand and the elbow towards the long edge of the mat. So we're keeping the forearm parallel. But basically I'm just doing this with my arm across the mat. And you should feel this. It's like gliding or serrating those tissues across that big front strap of pec muscle. You can do that about 5 to 10 times, and then go ahead and pause, release the hand down, soften the head down, and notice if you can melt even more fully over the block. Good. Go ahead and lift your head, press into your forearms, lift up off the block just for a moment and roll onto your back. Palms flip up, arms out to your sides. And notice how that right shoulder feels and right shoulder blade. Does it feel like it's released even more down to your mat? Do you have tingling or warmth or almost a buzzing feeling reaching down into your palms and fingertips? Notice if that side of your heart or chest feels more open. Good. And go ahead and roll back over to your side and make your way to your left side. So same thing, other side. So I can stay facing you, I'm just gonna flip on over here, take my block with me. Again, make sure that it's set up to capture this back strap that we're working with first. As you bring your armpit over that block, make sure that the elbow can land, make sure enough of it is behind you. Adjust your hips back or forward so that you can soften over the block. This top hand can just land on the top hip or in front of you if that feels good. And then the more you start to rock the hips and that top shoulder back, the more you start to bring some more weight into some maybe tender spots. And again, you can find stillness here straight away, or you can keep finding these little rocking motions. And do that for a few breaths. And go ahead and find a spot you can soften over. Notice if you're resisting the resistance. You can always use your breath to find a sense of softening and to sort of reset the nervous system so that your physicality can soften. And then feel free to stay here or roll forward slightly so you can lift up and maybe adjust the block again, just a couple centimeters or a half an inch up or down, depending on where you started. Start to find those rocking motions, or maybe you find something straight away. I'm getting some really nice spots personally. I love this. This really helps me to feel more open in my shoulders, helps me in all kinds of things. And then after you've done a little bit of rocking, if you are indeed rocking front to back, find a spot you can soften into. for just a couple breaths, or a few maybe. Excellent. All right, now to find the pecs, maybe even grab that sort of strap of tissue just to identify what you're trying to capture. Sometimes that can really help. Go ahead and release your right hand down and left forearm down, and adjust yourself as needed so that as you begin to turn the chest and the forehead and gaze to face down and sort of turn this torso at a more 45-degree angle from the ground down, you can really capture that front strap, the pec, soften your forehead down. Take a moment and see what you can soften around the resistance. Maybe notice if this side feels more congested, tighter than the other side, or maybe like me, this feels a little softer already. It's just more pliable. And you can stay just like this without any movement, or lift the forehead up, float the left forearm up. Remember, we're keeping it more or less parallel to that short edge of the mat as we just begin to bring the elbow and the hand to rock front and back. And you should feel it across that front strap of the chest as like it's serrating and sliding across the block. About 5 to 10 times. If you are doing this motion. And then pause, relax the arm and the hand down, rest the head down. Good. And then slowly lift your head, lift up off of that block, move it off to the side briefly. Roll onto your back for just a few moments while we notice the difference side to side here. Notice if that left shoulder feels like it's softening more fully. Maybe more surface area of the shoulder blade is resting. Maybe that tingling through the palm and fingertips. Go ahead and roll over onto one side or the other so that you can set yourself up for the next bit. So, for this, we're going to need both of our blocks. One's going to be more or less like a pillow, and the other will be for our hips. So we'll need both of our blocks. And essentially, we're going to be capturing these levators here, which are more or less, if you reach back and place the ball down, you're going to find a bit of sort of strappy tight tissue. And it's the same thing on the other side, okay? So you can kind of reach back and find, if you like, sort of at the inner border and top corner of each shoulder blade. If you kind of find it and go side to side, you'll usually find a nice like belt or strap of tissue that's tight, and that connects all the way up here to the base of our neck on either side. And typically it causes a lot of us a lot of tension. So no matter what, if you get more or less in the general area, you're also going to capture some other tissue like these upper traps that tend to be really tight and cranky. So You're gonna get something that's good. Don't worry too much about it, and you'll know when you've found the right spot, okay? So how to get set up for this is, I'm gonna keep my balls handy. I'm gonna go ahead and lie back with my head on that one block to start. We may or may not wanna get rid of it. I'm gonna take my other block and I'm gonna put it, you can start on the lowest, widest setting to go under your hips and your butt. I'm actually gonna place it a little bit higher just because I know I like a little bit more pressure on these. So the higher the hips are, the more weight that you're sending back into the shoulders so that they're pressing down on these myofascial release balls, or limes, or tennis balls, whatever your myofascial release tools are. So go ahead and press down into the feet to lift your hips. Find a spot that you can rest down. And now I'm gonna take one ball at a time and place it underneath my shoulder blade underneath my shoulder, outside of the shoulder blade. You don't wanna hit bone because it sucks. It does not feel good. And I can tell when I found that spot because it's already talking to me, okay? But adjust as needed. And I'm gonna take the other set. And again, it takes some wiggling side to side, some adjusting using my hands. Now you can just let your arms open out to the sides. You can start to move the arms overhead to bring even more weight down. And here is where I might actually get rid of this block so that my head rests down. And that actually feels a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more like I can soften over the resistance of these balls. So keep playing with the placement of the arms. Understand that as you work with some of these spots, there are trigger points, and you'll feel some what they call referred pain or referred sensation in other parts of the body. For instance, because of where the ball is hitting on that right side of my muscle, I'm actually feeling it in the base of my jaw, which is pretty close to where the muscle connects, more sort of. But it's just understand that this referred pain or referred sensation from hitting certain trigger points is a real thing, and it's common, and no worries. Of course, if you are in active pain, feel free to back off, and please do if you are finding yourself in pain. Readjust until you can find somewhere that is comfortable for you. We'll be here for just a couple more breaths. And then go ahead and press into the back of your head to help lift up the shoulders. Release those myofascial balls out from underneath you. Press into the feet to lift your hips up off of your block or whatever tool you're using there. Set that off to the side. And again, go ahead, just allow yourself to rest on your back for a moment. Notice if there's a sensation of relief, maybe the base of your skull. Some sense of warming, softening, letting go. Or maybe it's just sweet, sweet relief to not be on those myofascial balls anymore. That's also a sensation too. So for this last one, or second to last one really. You're gonna take one block as your pillow. Keep mine on the lowest setting because that's what makes the most sense for me. I'll show you real quick. We're going to sit up enough so that we can place the balls about an inch apart. And that's ish, right? So the myofascial balls are actually going to find the muscles, these rhomboids that are right between the shoulder blades. So again, we don't want them to be on bone. We want them to stay on muscle and soft tissue. So the idea is to land the balls in between the shoulder blades. So go ahead and place them on your mat. My floor is not even, so they're going wherever they want, sort of. Let's see. Okay, and then just like we did in the beginning, excuse me, you're gonna sort of eyeball your way down. Oh, yep. Mine have landed right between my shoulder blades. This is usually some pretty tender tissue for most people, so go easily. If you need to drape a blanket over your myofascial release tools, do it. I'm keeping my knees bent. I like that version a little bit more for my low back. And then just allow your arms to open out. And bring your arms to cross and hug over yourself. And arms open out. And give yourself a little hug. Reach for opposite shoulders. Open the arms out. And bring them to hug yourself. Open your arms out. Now choose. For me right now, this feels nice to soften here for a minute. Or you might drape your arms and hug yourself so that your arms are resting across the body. And now, go ahead and press into your feet just enough to lift the hips so that you can roll the balls down, further down between the shoulder blades. So if you started low on the shoulder blades, lift your hips up and roll your hips down your mat or up your mat, right? So we're just wanting to keep those balls or myofascial release tools in between the shoulder blades. You can adjust the block underneath your head or the pillow underneath your head. Just find a new spot. You don't need to move very far. And then again, open the arms out. Go ahead and close them. Open the arms out. Give yourself a little hug. Open arms. Give yourself a hug and now choose. Do you want to drape the arms across your body, staying in this gentle hug? Do you want to open the arms out and rest for a few breaths? Pick what works. I don't know if you can hear my tummy talking to you in my mic, but it's pretty great. It's letting me know it's ready for lunch. Good. Now, go ahead and roll to one side or the other gently so that you can move those balls out from underneath you. Actually, go ahead and lie back on your block yet again. We are going to use the block in just a moment. Let your arms open out to the sides, palms face up. Take a moment to allow that sense of recalibration of the tissues, sense of everything settling. While you notice any gentle shifts or changes. Good. Now, we're going to take this block that's underneath us and we're going to use it to massage out the base of our neck. So, you might roll over to one side first. Bring the block up to its medium long setting. And now this bottom edge of the block is going to capture, we're going to lie back so that it's just at the base of our skull. So again, not directly on bone, but sort of just underneath it, right at the base of the skull. So go ahead and lie on back. It should feel as though your neck is draping down off of the block. So we're not sitting way up here on it with the chin lifted. The chin will actually feel as though it's tucking in a bit towards your chest. And often I have found myself really trying to press my head down and force this. Don't. You don't need a lot of pressure in the places that we're going that tend to be very, very sensitive at the base of the neck. So again, arms out to your sides, palms face up. Notice where your nose is pointing. And start to roll or turn your nose over to the right. Bringing your gaze to the right. Until you find sort of a tender spot. So I rolled all the way over to the right, pause, and now bring your nose about halfway back or until you find a tender spot. It's loosely halfway. And take a moment here and just allow that sensation of draping of the neck, of using that block, or maybe it's a book that you're using to put gentle pressure on that tension. And now you can choose to stay or start to draw little circles with your nose. Maybe about an inch or two. They don't need to be big. And then pause and bring your nose again about halfway back towards middle or until you find another tender spot. Pause. Option to stay still or start to draw little circles in the air with your nose. Go ahead and pause. Bring your nose directly back up to center and pause. Notice here whatever differences there are between the sides of your neck, right to left. If one shoulder feels like it's softened even further down, one side of your neck feels longer, like it's draping even more. And now turn your nose to the left until you find a tender-ish spot. Maybe turning it all the way to the left and then coming back until you find that spot. Once you find that spot, pause. Common referral pattern is to feel this kind of in the top of your skull or even in your eyebrows. You can start to draw those little circles with your nose if you haven't already. Find some stillness, pause. Find another spot by rolling your nose or turning your nose maybe about halfway back. Start to draw those little circles with the nose. And pause. And bring your nose back up to center. You might just rock side to side slowly across those nice. Whew. Ran out of battery. Yikes. Okay. Bring your nose back up to center. You might rock gently side to side, finding those muscles on either side of your spine. Run all the way down to the low back. And ultimately find stillness. See if you can drape the neck more fully off of the block. And very slowly, take the block out from underneath you. Lie on your back, palms face up. Take a moment to notice what's different here. And you might stay here and find your way into a Shavasana if you would like. Or maybe this is just the beginning of your movement practice. If so, either way, thank you for joining me. I'll see you at your next class. Namaste.